So what I wanted to talk about today was there was a very interesting comment on the recent post that we did, kind of announcing the fact that although Jerry had intended me to be his 777, that I have taken up that role in a different way, namely by being your woman. So we can say more about that, but I just wanted to mention the comment, which was, I think, very uh, good in the sense that it probably expresses what a lot of particularly women are thinking. Um, so the woman who wrote the comment, who is somebody who I know does spiritual activities, like is a leader of things in Southern California, she wrote that she wished that I had taken up the mantle. She said other things too, I mean, which I would love to comment on, but I'm going to try to focus on the one comment. Um, and I think a lot of women would have preferred to see especially given the opportunity that arose that doesn't happen too often, that a woman would be in charge of the AA. But the thing is that being that we're in Thelema, for one thing, it seems most important to be true to oneself, and it's hard to articulate, of course, exactly how one comes to feel like you're doing your will. I mean, it's hard to express that, and we could always talk about more theoretical things, but I mean, just intuitively, um, this has felt correct to me. It seems like, as I wrote somewhere, my path has been very much, very, I mean, very explicitly, like I've been getting these messages for quite a while now that I'm supposed to be developing myself as a very pure woman, very receptive, and essentially supporting the phallus, and not really being on the external. So for me to be, having you coming into my life and to this AA at the time that you did, it has seemed very just completely almost inevitable that I would be then supporting you, you being that vehicle of the God. And then, and so it just has felt natural, aside from the fact that you're Magister Templey and I'm not. So that's another feature of this whole thing. But in any case, I just wanted to kind of open up that topic and see if you maybe had any comments as well, and maybe we could talk about it and see where it goes.
I was just wondering about our previous conversations, pretty much about women crossing the abyss and the capacity to speak the word and what that means, um, especially in the context of Thelema. Like, I mean, not that women can't cross the abyss, obviously they can, but the word of the magus has directly to do with a male context, I guess you could say. Um, so it really depends about what you think of that, and as well as the fact that I think that this duality between men and women is ridiculous because we're competing over um, things that are pretty much irrelevant because we have our own roles that we fulfill and they're both equally important, but they're equally different. And it's not a competition at all. We're just making it into a false dichotomy. So
Well, you just said a whole bunch. You said a lot of things that I'd love to talk about. Like I start with the first one about the speaking of the word. So first of all, I do agree that a woman can cross the abyss, right? I mean, theoretically, a woman can take the oath of the abyss, and why not? I will say too, Jerry firmly believed that. Like he definitely believed that a woman can cross the abyss, um, and he didn't seem to think. I mean, I think more, you and I probably have a more similar view than Jerry on this, but he didn't seem to be very concerned with the fact that obviously a woman lacks a penis and therefore cannot utter the word, utter a word in the same way. I mean, I can't say for absolute certain that a woman has no word. I mean, that would be, I wouldn't know. I mean, it's like that's not for me to say about everyone. I'm not omniscient or something like that, but it's obvious that, I mean, from a physical standpoint, that she cannot she cannot muster the force to do so in this sort of catastrophic way that a male can. So I mean, even if a woman had a word, it would be a very diffuse, gentle, sort of different sort of expression. and certainly not what we're calling uttering the word in Thelema.
Which requires a conjunction, like an alchemical conjunction between egg and seed, for example. I mean, you have to have both sides of the equation. Ultimately, I mean, well, from Crowley's point of view, two males could theoretically produce that, but so there is something important, definitely, about the word and the seed and the phallus and the middle pillar and what Baphomet represents and so on and so forth. And nobody's figured out yet, at least as far as I know, how two women can enact that particular.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I sort of don't want to go there, but I agree with you. I don't think that that's been seen, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because one way or another, where women either by basically a woman by herself or however many women you want are going to be lacking that direct connection with the seed. So it would be, I mean, for example, when I've been solo, kind of worked by myself, it's not to say that I don't have a God principle within or Hokmah within. I have a will. It's not to say that I don't. So there, I have a God, but I can focus on the God and I can nurture that, but there's no way to bring the seed down to earth. So it's kind of like, it's sort of like there is a connection, but it's a much more tenuous connection than the direct bringing down to earth.
And that's the male's job, is to relinquish his own self in favor of being an avatar for God and not an ego, and to channel that towards the woman who is the receptive partner in the equation, is the earth, is the nurturer, is the garden, so to speak. So like, yeah, it's apples and oranges in my mind.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said the word avatar too, because that's basically what we're trying to achieve in Thelema. As you climb the tree, sort of becoming an avatar for the will. Now, for a man, I think that he has basically a much more, again, direct and clear sort of formative principle since he has a word and he's uttering the word. I have before, when Jerry was alive, and he was the MT and Magus of the order. So then he every equinox would utter a word. I mean, and then I don't mean that only physically. Like we didn't necessarily have a ceremony where there was like sexual activity, or it would not necessarily at all. But nevertheless, there was something coming through him. And oftentimes, like maybe at least 5 times or something, he had me actually receive the word, meaning he wouldn't talk to me and wouldn't just say, "You're going to get the word." And I would just get it somehow, either bibliomancy or just different ways. But the thing is, it was his word. So it was like, I know that he said, you have the ability to be an avatar, and I certainly have, I think, shown that in other ways too, such as through writing. But still, it was always mediated, by him. So so it's kind of interesting. So I'm not, again, I can't say for absolute certain, what all women can or can't do. That's absurd. But except for what we've already said, the one absolute fact, which is that a woman cannot directly pull down from heaven that seed.
And all I know of you is all I know of you, not all women. That doesn't necessarily encapsulate all women. That you can channel when you write, and that you can choose these words like shine, for example. It's really great stuff that you channel. So being a pure channel, I think, means diminishing the ego enough, right, to be able to not get stuck in these petty games of male, female, or gendered, or these relationships, that imaginary problems we sort of construct for ourselves, and reality tunnels that we live in, and very narrow. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean that's exactly what I wanted to say. Also, is that idea of like, women being disappointed, let's say, that I didn't take up the mantle as the inner head or something, or the soul head of the A or something like that. I mean, the fact is, that kind of thinking, I mean, no offense to the person who made the comment, and I understand the impulse, is based in the ego, meaning that, anytime that we're seeking something or trying to bring about a certain result, lusting for results, it's contrary to the will. So I mean, whether there should be a female head of a magical order, or whether it's a guy saying like, I should be the greatest head, or whatever it may be, whenever we're seeking something, then we're necessarily basically resisting. We're actually restricting the will. The will is something that we receive passively, whether male or female.
Right. I mean, I sincerely believe that, I never sought this position, and so I just sort of went with things, and that's the way to, and I've done that my whole life, and things have worked out. But when you actively seek, when I've actively sought things, it tends to get muddled and fucked up and everything. So it's better just to follow whatever the signals are that you're receiving, and synchronicities and things of that nature, and take the ego out of it as much as possible. I mean, use it as a framework, but not as I'm so whatever, right? Which I think you've done very well in doing, and I think I've done myself very well in doing it. Make a good team for sure. Yeah.